On November 15, 1953, General Navarre received a report that the 36th Vietnamese Division was moving toward the northwest. The French command feared that if the Viet Minh seized the region, it would pose a threat to Upper Laos and the royal capital of Luang Prabang. In response, the French High Command quickly made a decision. On November 20th, 1953, the skies over Dien Bien Phu roared with the sound of aircraft. The 6th Colonial Parachute Battalion and 2 battalions of the 1st Parachute Regiment landed. The following day, 3 more parachute battalions were deployed. Within 2 days, France had airdropped 5,100 paratroopers and 240 tons of weapons and equipment into the valley, in what was codenamed Operation Castor. Navarre decided to abandon Lai Chau and concentrate forces to reinforce Dien Bien Phu. On December 7, 1953, Colonel de Castries was appointed to command the Dien Bien Phu garrison. The French continued to build fortifications, turning the valley into a massive defensive complex with 8 strong points divided into 3 subsectors. The central subsector sat in the middle of the Muang Thon Plain, surrounding the command bunker. The northern subsector had 2 strong points, while the southern subsector had 1, with artillery placed in Muang Thon and Hong Kong. A tank unit was stationed in the central and southern areas. Even U.S. Vice President Richard Nixon visited to observe the fortifications. Many French and American generals believed the Dien Bien Phu position was a formidable fortress. Some called it a little Verdun of Asia. Colonel de Castries boldly declared the fortress would crush the Viet Minh's ambitions. French historian Jules Roy described Dien Bien Phu as Na San multiplied by 10, a reference to a previous French success, implying overwhelming strength. Confident, the French believed Dien Bien Phu would become a meat grinder that the Viet Minh could never overcome. But General Von Nguyen Giap, who had spent 8 years facing the French Expeditionary Corps, saw opportunity. On December 6, 1953, President Ho Chi Minh chaired a Politburo meeting to plan an offensive against Dien Bien Phu. It was agreed that although the fortress was strong, its isolation was its weakness. All supplies relied on airdrops. The Politburo launched Campaign Tran Dinh and appointed General Giap as commander and party secretary of the Dien Bien Phu front. Before Giap departed, President Ho advised, "The general in the field has full authority. If certain victory is assured, attack. If not, be resolute not to engage." The northwest forests stirred. Long columns of civilian porters and soldiers hauled artillery, supplies, and food up treacherous mountain roads. Troops strained to pull heavy cannons across the Da River, which surged violently, but the determined Vietnamese forces overcame every obstacle. Vietnamese forces numbered about 55,000 men, including 5 divisions: 304, 308, 312, 316, and 351. They had 75mm recoilless rifles, 82mm mortars, 120mm mortars, 75mm field guns, 105mm howitzers, 37mm anti-aircraft guns, H-6 rocket launchers, and 715 transport vehicles. The French forces in Dien Bien Phu included 16,200 men, 16 infantry battalions, 1 engineer battalion, 20 120mm mortars, 28 105mm howitzers, 4 155mm howitzers, 10 American M24 tanks, 200 transport trucks, 14 aircraft, and several scout and fighter planes. In a cave in Phu Zan, Truong Sin Commune, Tuan Chau District, General Giap and his general staff set up headquarters from December 17, 1953 to January 17, 1954. Here, a massive sand table model illustrated the battlefield for commanders like General Vuong Thua Vu, Le Trong Tan, Le Quang Ba, Dao Van Truong, Nam Long, Chu Hui Man, and Pham Ngoc Mao. The initial plan was a swift attack. Division 308 would strike from the west across the Muang Thon Plain toward de Castries HQ, while Divisions 312 and 316 would attack key high grounds from the east. The hope was to conclude the battle in 2 or 3 days. Originally, the attack was scheduled for January 25, 1954, but a captured soldier forced Giap to reconsider. Assessing the French building upon the growing strength of their fortifications, they were supported by artillery and artillery. Giap's Vietnamese forces lacked experience in such large-scale coordinated artillery and infantry assaults, especially in daylight against a well-fortified, air-supported enemy. On January 26th, Giap convened a critical party meeting. The strategy was shifted from quick victory to steady attack, sure victory. Although opinions were divided, Giap made a historic decision: pull the artillery back for reorganization. The movement was ordered by handwritten letters. Radio silence was maintained. A few days later, General Secretary Truong Chin sent a reply. President Ho and the Politburo fully supported Giap's decision. Under party leadership, an unprecedented logistics effort began. Over 260,000 civilian laborers, youth volunteers, and militias transported more than 25,000 tons of rice, 900 tons of meat, and hundreds of tons of other supplies. They used 21,000 bicycles, 12,000 rafts, and 500 horses. Despite French bombing, the supply lines remained unbroken. To Hu's poetry immortalized their spirit. Through bombs and bullets, flesh torn, bones shattered, we press on without fear, without regret. From the Soviet Union, Vietnam received 37mm anti-aircraft guns, rocket launchers, and 685 trucks. China supplied 700 tons of rice and an artillery regiment with 105mm guns. With the new strategy, artillery had to be repositioned. Soldiers manually pulled guns across rivers, steep cliffs, and the treacherous Pu Song Kia Range, inclines up to 45 degrees. On February 2, 1954, a cable snapped on a steep hill, threatening to destroy a 37mm gun. To Dien threw himself under the gun to stop it from falling, sacrificing his life. Once redeployed, Vietnamese artillery surrounded the French in the valley. From their concealed, camouflaged mountain positions, they zeroed in on precise targets. The first attack was planned for Him Lam, a strong point 2.5 kilometers northeast of Muang Thong. On March 13, 1954, at 5:05 p.m., 40 cannons rained fire on Him Lam. French forces were stunned. Their artillery commander, Pirot, had boasted no Viet Minh gun would fire more than 3 rounds. Yet, unable to silence them, he ordered 6,000 shells in return, to no avail. Vietnamese troops stormed Him Lam, blasting through trenches and machine gun nests. In one heroic act, Phan Dinh Giap used his body to block a bunker's firing port, allowing comrades to overrun the position. By 10:30 p.m., Him Lam was captured. 2 days later, Vietnamese troops attacked the independent strongpoint. French counterattacks with tanks and 105mm and 155mm artillery failed. Within 3 hours, the strongpoint was overrun. Colonel Pirot committed suicide with a grenade. Then, Regiment 36 persuaded Thai troops to surrender without a fight, capturing Ban Kao. This gave control of the hills overlooking the Muang Thong airstrip. In the second phase, the Vietnamese dug a massive trench network, encircling the central French sector. Trench lines branched from forests, reaching key enemy points. Every night, these strangling nooses tightened. To protect diggers, troops disguised as bushes rolled straw mats like giant porcupines and built concealed bunkers. The French had no effective counter. Observers noted, the French seemed to have forgotten this type of warfare. By late March, trench warfare had broken the French defense network. Supply drops from planes were increasingly captured by the Viet Minh. Anti-aircraft fire reclaimed the skies over the Muang Thong Strip. In the third campaign phase, all eyes turned to Hill A1, heavily defended, constantly reinforced with tanks and paratroopers. Regiment 174 of Division 316 was assigned to capture it. A tunnel was dug to plant 1,000 kilos of explosives beneath it. On May 6, 1954, at 8:30 p.m., the charges exploded, blasting open the hilltop. Vietnamese forces surged forward. Close combat raged in bunkers and trenches. By dawn, Hill A1 was fully under control. Just 12 hours later, at 5:30 p.m. on May 7th, the determined to win flag flew over to Castor's headquarters. The French command had been captured alive. After 56 36 days of relentless combat, mud, blood, and rice balls, the Vietnamese achieved total victory. They captured or killed 16,000 French troops, seized 28 cannons, 6,000 guns, tanks, trucks, tons of supplies, and downed 62 aircraft. The world was stunned. French newspapers like Le Monde and Le Figaro called the defeat a colonial collapse. U.S. aid to France had reached 400,000 tons of military equipment. President Eisenhower even considered nuclear options, which France declined. On May 8, 1954, President Ho Chi Minh sent congratulations to the soldiers. But he reminded them, "This is only the beginning. Next, we must defeat the Americans." Dien Bien Phu was not just a military victory, it was the fulfillment of Ho Chi Minh's vision. This resounding triumph shook the world, ended French colonialism in Indochina, and turned the page of Vietnamese history forever.